But I don't know. Let's ask the expert. Let's bring in Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, senior NFL reporter. He's been around the camps. Now he's in the mountains. Albert, your read on Kevin Stefanski.
I think, right now they're biding their time until they name the quarterback. And I think the quarterback's going to be Joe Flacco. And I think it's pretty clear, if you talk to people who've been in that camp, and I think you just look at the structure of the quarterback competition and what they did going back to May and June when they essentially gave Joe a first-round bye into the summer by working him less and getting a better look at the other guys back then. This competition to some degree has been, rigged the whole way through. And, I think a big part of it, J-Mac, is just if you look at their schedule, those first 6 games, it's brutal. I mean, it's hard not to look at the first 6 games in their schedule and think that could very well be 0-6. And so, they got to give the Denzel Wards, the Myles Garretts, and the Joel Bitonio's of their roster the very best chance they can to go and at least compete to win some football games. And I think it's pretty clear right now that Joe's going to give him the best shot to do that.
Wow. So you make it sound like Flacco's like a sacrificial lamb for the month of September.
I don't know about that. I mean, here's the thing. And I've tried to describe this logically to people, right? So I think for a lot of us, and I understand this, and a lot of fans, you would look at this situation, you'd say to yourself, well, you're sort of in this transitional phase where you're trying to get younger. You traded the second overall pick to try to put more young guys in the roster. You're going to have guys like Mason Graham and Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins eventually, and Carson Schlesinger playing a lot of snaps. So if you're in that transitional phase anyway, well, why don't you just get a longer look at your young quarterbacks? The problem is that if that's not going to give you the best shot to win, the players are going to know that. And the veterans on your roster, the Garretts, the Wards, the Bitonios, aren't interested in your 3-year plan. They aren't interested in who's going to be the quarterback in 2027, So there will come a time when you can do those sorts of things, but that's later in the calendar. If it's very clear that Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders aren't going to be the best answer for the Browns to win in week 1, week 2, week 3, well, if Kevin Stefanski just throws those guys out there, he risks losing the team, So I think there is a little bit of what you're talking about, which is you wouldn't want to put a rookie, out against that schedule with the team that they've got right now anyway. But I think as much as anything else, it's just, doing the best you can to field a competitive team until, the tenor of the season swings, which could happen later, I think when you get to, if they were eventually get to the point where you're 2-7 or 3-8, that's where I think everybody knows, okay, they've got to get a read on their roster, and everybody understands that. Players are smart enough to understand that. But as for right now, if you're a guy who's, looking to play good football and continue his career and have a really good year, it's really important for Kevin Stefanski to give you the best answer at the most important position on the field. And I think through camp, it's pretty clear that best answer is Joe Flacco.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the team you were at most recently in camp, Houston and the Texans. Now, listen, we don't do a lot of Texans on this show. They're kind of a team that lacks an identity. Nobody really cares about the Houston Texans. I don't even have them in the playoffs this year, which may or may not be crazy, but you were just there and you sound kind of excited about this team.
Yeah, I am. I don't think there's a team in the league that's got a position group it's more reliant on and has a bigger swing factor than the Texans with their offensive line. They traded Laramie Tunsil. They felt like the environment in that room was toxic last year. And it's not that Tunsil was the root of the problem. It's more, he is the most tenured guy. Is he going to fix the problem? And the answer for them was no. So they go and they rebuild their line. And, really, if you look at what they did after trading Tunsil, was they threw a bunch of darts at the board, right? So they got Blake Fisher. He's back from last year tackle. They bring in Cam Robinson and Trent Brown, guys who have had character issues of their own, but have also started a lot of games in the league. In the second round, you draft Ursary from Minnesota, who's got a ton of potential and was the starting left tackle the day I was out there. And then you've got some guys in the interior. Titus Howard can play guard or tackle. You bring Jake Andrews in. You've got Laken Tomlinson. So they've got about 10 linemen right now who are competing for 5 spots. But the team everywhere else is really, really good. You got to get Joe Mixon back, so that's a factor. But, the skill spots, you've got, Nick Chubb, who's looked really good. The two Iowa State kids, Higgins and Noel, who they drafted, who look really good. Nico Collins is a legit number one. And then I think they might have the best defense in the league. If you consider their combination of edge rushers with Anderson and Hunter, and then the corners with Stingley and this kid Lassiter, who they think has got the potential to be almost as good as Stingley, believe it or not. I think they feel like they've got a chance to have the best defense in football. So a really good young quarterback, new offensive coordinator, really good skill positions, really great defense. And now can the offensive line hold up? That's the operative question.
That is so. First of all, if you have 10 offensive linemen, you have none, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that 10 guys for 5 spots? That's not great.
Yeah.
And CJ,
and that's what they're looking at. Yeah.
CJ was sacked like 75 million times last year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but listening to you, Albert, I just started thinking like, damn, what are they doing? Why are they building this way? Defense first, let's invest in defense. That sounds very Pittsburgh Steelers to me. But then I thought, it's D'Amico Ryans is their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, CJ Stroud has to be pissed.
No, I mean, I think, for CJ, I mean, first of all, here's the thing. You can't really, it's difficult to rebuild an offensive line in a single offseason, right? Like, so they went the route of pulling as many levers as they possibly could. And, you see how all of that, winds up playing out. They did take an offensive tackle with a high pick. They did sign 2 offensive tackles that have a lot of starting experience. It's just really hard to find them. You know what I mean? So if you are going to trade Laramie Tunsil, that's the problem. It's just really hard to replace a guy like that, even if he's had his issues. Like, that type of player is very, very hard to find. It's why they get paid at the level that they do. So, I think for CJ, really, a lot of it's going to come down to the new offensive coordinator and what they're able to do with him. And there's a real trust level being built there. And Nick Caley, who comes over from the Rams and has experience working in the Patriots offense, has kind of the best of both worlds there, where he'll be able to give CJ more command at the line of scrimmage. I think that part of it looks really, really good to this point. They've done a good job of building up the trust with CJ and empowering CJ. And this is going to be a silly way of putting it, but they'd be a really great 7-on-7 offense. We'll see how they are 11-on-11.
Okay, 7-on-7. Now, it's interesting because as you see on the screen, which team has the best chance to win the division? I have Tennessee winning it, but I'm curious. Okay, so defensive coach D'Amico Ryans, they spend a lot on defense, offensive line in flux. Jacksonville's the opposite. New head coach, offensive guy in Cohen. Let's go get Travis Hunter, which I thought it was an overpay in the draft, but we'll see. And I think they have 2 or 3 new offensive linemen. They're doing what I think you should do in the modern era: load up on offense, and then we'll worry about defense later. No?
Yeah, and I think the way they're handling Hunter is a great sign of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think most people, I would say 90% of the people I talked to about Travis Hunter before the draft said, start him on defense and have him involved in meetings and practice on defense, and then build packages in for him on offense, which is exactly how they used him at Colorado, right? Like, so there'd be a comfort level for Hunter if you did play it that way. And they went the opposite.
Yeah.
They're trying to get him involved on offense first. And, like, that trade, again, says 2 things. Is that first thing, which is like the offense first approach, and that goes to the hire of Liam Cohen. And if you look at the way the Rams built, over the years, you can see like this sort of a Rams-like approach in the way Liam Cohen is doing it. And then the second thing is, like, I think it means they think they're closer than the rest of us do. Because if you're going to give up the sort of capital that it takes to move up and within the top 5, you better feel pretty good about where your team is. Like, that's a move a team makes when it thinks it's close, right? Like, you remember the Falcons trading up for Julio Jones. That was a team that thought it was right on the doorstep. So if you're going to trade up for a single player who isn't a quarterback that aggressively, that means you think you're a lot closer than the rest of us do, which means maybe they like the Tyson Campbells and Brian Thomas. I think everybody likes Brian Thomas, right? Like, but the Tyson Campbells, the Trayvon Walkers, the Josh Allens, like those guys, like maybe, Tony Baselli and James Gladstone and Liam Cohen like that core a little bit more than most people did going into the offseason, which is why you would make a move like they did. And again, they're leaning in on offense, and there's a great deal of faith, too, in Trevor Lawrence that's needed to make a move like that.
Since I decided to take this interview to talking about bad teams, let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I don't know, Albert, this is unbelievable. So there's no video of this Michael Penix fight. Everybody's talking about it, but there's no video, which is unbelievable. Nevertheless, what have you heard? I feel irrationally bullish on Penix. Have you been to their camp yet?
So, yeah, I was at their camp earlier this week. Here's what I would tell you.
All right.
Okay, well, here's what I would tell you is there's a lot of, when you talk to a lot of coaches about quarterbacks, right? Talk to front office people about young quarterbacks. When they have them, there's a lot of like, I'd say break tapping, right? Like where you're like, okay, like we really like him and we like this and this and this and this, but we're realistic about the way we look at it. And when I was there, I just felt like a lot of punching on the gas with Penix, you know what I mean? Like, and I was hearing it from coaches, that don't even work with him that said to me, like, his vision is unbelievable. The stuff he sees out there and how fast he's processing is really next level for a guy who lacks experience at the NFL level like Penix does. And, a lot of those guys are Rams guys, right? So you have Raheem Morris, you have Zach Robinson. Like, there's a lot of Rams influence in that building, right? The comp you're hearing a lot inside that building is Matthew Stafford.
What?
And it's because of his vision. It's because of his processing. It's because of his arm strength and arm talent, his ability to layer balls. Now, there are things that aren't there, right? Like yet. So he doesn't have all the arm angles. Obviously, he's not going to be as evolved as Stafford is, but Stafford's the comp for them. And they see a lot of it. And these are guys, again, who got to see Matthew Stafford up close for those years in Los Angeles. So, they've got a veteran offensive line coming back, guys who have so much experience working together. They have Bijan Robinson, who I think is one of the best weapons, not just running backs, one of the best weapons in all of football. Drake London's a really good receiver. They'll have Darnell Mooney back. I mean, Kyle Pitts, there's a big we'll see on that.
Yeah.
You hear that every summer. But, they're very optimistic about where Penix is with that offense.
Wow. Stafford comparison to I like that. I haven't heard that anywhere. This is why you're great. All right, I'm contractually obligated because Colin's Mr. Chicago now. Caleb Williams. I'm sure you've seen the latest, Albert. He hit a couple passes. He's really crisp this week at practice, but he's going to play this weekend. Can you just set some baseline expectations for if he has a drive, a quarter, whatever it is?
So I think I said this to Colin right after I was at their camp. Like, it looked really ugly when I was there, and when I go to these camps, I sit down, I spend time with coaches, and I try to contextualize everything. And I would tell you that when I was there, there was a lot of there was a lot of big picture thinking, which was, let's just throw the kitchen sink at him. Let's just hit him over the head with the offense, and let's see what he can handle. Let's make it really hard on him. So eventually we'll get to the point where what we're actually going to do during the season is easy for him. And over time, we're going to get a look at him running everything. And then as camp wears on, we're going to start to narrow what we're doing, because we're going to figure out what he can handle, what he's good at, what we want to lean into. And I think that's the point they're getting to now. And so this is sort of, I guess, the proverbial breaking of the horse, right? Like, you got a horse, you got this super, super talented guy who, like, you just need to harness the talent there and figure it out. And that's the way they're handling the process. It's a tough thing to do in a market like Chicago, right? Yeah. Like, that's an intense football market. Like, I would say, if you're a coach there, you are, you wear the failures of the guys that came before you. So for Ben Johnson, that's Matt Nagy, that's Matt Eberflus, that's John Fox, that's Mark Trestman. Like, you're wearing all the things that went wrong with those guys. And for a quarterback, it's the same thing. Yeah. You're wearing the failures of Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky and Jay Cutler. And so when you're doing it this way in that environment, it's difficult because of all the noise on the outside. But I think Ben would remind you, there were times in practice it didn't look great with Jared Goff when they were going through this process. So he really believes in it, and they think they're going to have a better product when they get to the season, because everything's going to be much easier on Caleb Williams when you get there, because it was so hard on him early in camp.
So if I asked you a more likely path for Caleb, Josh Allen struggled the first couple of years with Daboll, starts to click everything, becomes a superstar. Or is it Baker Mayfield, who after, got to the playoffs with Cleveland, but then just fizzled quickly, bounced around the league, then finds a second home and has like another career? Would you say closer to Josh Allen, your prediction, or Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, I mean, I think Josh Allen's a tough bar to clear, because obviously we all know what he's become now, a league MVP. But I think he's got like good infrastructure around him now, so we're going to find out. And that's the whole thing, in year 2, year 3, you want to start to get answers. Year 1's about development. That gets screwed up a little bit when you go through a coaching change, which, I think you should give Caleb some grace for that. But I think now, like you look at what they've got a really good quarterbacks guy in Ben Johnson as the head coach, a really promising young coach as OC in Declan Doyle. And then they reworked the offensive line this offseason and bringing in Jonah Jackson and Joe Tooney to play guard, and Drew Dahlman to play center. And they've got the skill guys and DJ Moore and Luther Burden drafted and Roma Dunze drafted last year. And you have the 2 tight ends too, and Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland. So I think we're going to get to, I think you look at the first month, 2 months, like, okay, like new system, everything else. I think by the end of the year, you want to have a pretty good idea of where Caleb Williams is going. So for me, that would be the timeline. It's like, what does it look like in December? Do you feel like this team and this quarterback is really going to be a force to be reckoned with in 2026? I think they can get there. But again, like that Josh Allen bar is pretty hard to clear.
It is high. But Caleb came in as like, hey, he could be face of the league in a few years.
I know. And that was the thing, is like we all looked at him that way. It was like one of those Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, like the once in every few years type of prospect. So, like that, there was a high bar for him coming into the league. And, now I think we have to kind of readjust some of that stuff a little bit.
All right, I'll get you out of here with this one, Albert. You've been going to a lot of camps, obviously a lot of confidential meetings. Is there any like a blind item or anything fascinating that you've got from a coach, a player, positive, negative, first coach fired? I don't know, just drop something. You don't have to get too specific. You can leave it up to us to guess. But is there anything that just totally shocked you?
A blind item? I don't know. I don't know if there's such thing as a blind item
the first
anymore.
Coach fired? Is the first coach fired going to be coming from the AFC East?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think a lot of people have circled Mike McDaniel. Mike kind of strikes me as a coach who would get a second shot if it happens.
Yeah.
I just think like the thing about the Dolphins, if they were to make a move on Mike McDaniel, I think it might have to be a complete organizational overhaul, and their willingness to do that, we'll see what that is. But I certainly think you look at that team and they're in sort of a soft rebuild, and I mean, is that going to be a 3 or 4 win team, or is it going to be a 7 or 8 win team? How you handle the rebuild is going to be really important, to a lot of people in that building. And so, I look at the Dolphins this way, right? How many players in that roster do you think you could say, yes, he's going to be there in 2 years, in 2027? Like, seriously, like I think Chop Robinson will be there in 2 years. I think Jalen Waddle will be there in 2 years. How many other guys could you name? Maybe Tua. I mean, can you say that with certainty? Yeah. I don't know.
If Tua hits the market, you think there's a big market for Tua?
Yeah, I think there would be a market for Tua. I don't know, but the thing is, you're trading the contract. I think there are a lot of people who like him, but the contract would sort of be the problem.
All right, Albert Breer. He's great. He's plugged in, continued success this season. I'm sure I'll bump into you somewhere. Just don't big time me like that time. No, just kidding. All right, Albert Breer. That's like great stuff, buddy.
All right. Thanks, J-Mac.